Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Rangers Review morning briefing. It is Thursday, the 10th of October. I'm Derek Clark, and I'm joined this morning by Joshua Barry. How's it going, Joshua?
Going good, mate. Good to be with you. Feels like October now, doesn't it? Because it's a bit
Chilly in
cold,
the air.
yeah, indeed. But no, always fun to be here. I'm looking forward to getting into it, even if we don't have that much fresh material to discuss. How many days are we into the international break? 4?
Yeah.
3? A few?
Seems like a long time to
Yeah.
go still. I don't think we've had any internationals yet, but yeah. What we'll do is we'll discuss a few bits of news items, things on the website, and if you want to get your questions in as well to myself and Joshua, folks, then please do. And we'll make a show out of it, that's for sure. Big welcome back, incidentally. I know yesterday we were back on Facebook. This morning, back on Instagram. I know that many of you like to watch us on there as well. So a big welcome back to you all. And before we dive in as well, it's just under a week now before we're set to head to London. So if you aren't aware, if you haven't seen any of the promotional items just yet, I'll whack up Big Mark here. We're hosting a Rangers Review live event down in London next Wednesday the 16th of October, alongside Mark Haitley. So he will be joining us as well. It's at the Volley, a new football and beer bar in London. It looks absolutely fantastic. So tickets are still available for the event. Doors open at 5. Set to run until I think about 9 o'clock. So very much looking forward to it. There'll be a Q&A. We'll interview Mark as well and hear all about his career, his time at Rangers, playing under Walter, playing alongside Super Ali and what have you, and lots more in between. And there'll be a meet and greet afterwards as well. Not only that, we were given a very special code yesterday by the organisers at the Volley, and you get 50% off tickets as well. So if you use the code RR50 in the checkout, if you head over to eventbrite.co.uk, search for Rangers Review, or simply click on the link below this video. It'll take you through to the website where you can buy tickets for the night. And it's certainly going to be a night I'm looking forward to, Joshua.
Yeah, going to be great, and hopefully it will be a little bit of something for everyone, Derek, whether that be talk about Rangers at the moment as much as people want to, and assessing the season so far, as well as looking back to a slightly better era with Mark, a bit of a Q&A. So yeah, really looking forward to it. As you say, RR50 is the code people can use if they want to get that discount on tickets, and looking forward to seeing some listeners maybe based in London, and looking forward to heading down with your good self.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I've been a few nights with Mark before, and they're brilliant. It's a brilliant storyteller. The latest one, big shout out to the World Rangers Supporters Club. They put on a cracking evening with Mark, and I'm sure next Wednesday will be likewise as well. Right, let's crack on with other news. And you've seen the title of the video, the Nico Raskin situation. This was just off the back of Chris's piece on the website yesterday, and we never went into detail about it yesterday. William raises a point here, says that what happened with Raskin, so much happening at Rangers. So Nico Raskin, he was been a bit part player, it's fair to say, Joshua, under Philip Clement. Big season for him this term, there's no doubt about it. He did start started at the weekend, didn't he, against St Johnstone.
Yes.
Came off at half-time.
He played the full 90. He came off at half-time against Hibs, I think.
Hibs,
unless we're getting our facts wrong.
It's me getting mixed up then, but he hasn't really set the hell of a light since arriving, it's fair to say, from Standard Liège. Now, we know he picked up that injury after that ridiculous challenge on him in a pre-season friendly against Ajax. But Nico Raskin is... Can you see him having a long-term future at Rangers? He's someone I think we've discussed at length before about having the opportunity to go and show why he was brought to the club in the first place. He hasn't really, for me, really grasped that opportunity as yet. Can he still do that, do you reckon?
That was his first 90 minutes in the league in over 11 months. So the last time he played 90 minutes in the Scottish Premiership, I believe, was either Philippe Clement's first or second game. I think it might have been, the game he scored against Hibs. I think he then got injured against Hearts the following weekend. And then he didn't really come back into the team, did he, at all? Even when he was fit, he's had kind of persistent knocks and niggles that have kept him out of the team at different points, that have stopped him from building up that consistency. And he's never been able to really build in that first 6 months under Michael Beale, or first 5 months when he did look really good. Now we can come on to speak a little bit about why that is. Is the system not as well suited to Raskin as a player? I thought he looked better in that number 6 role, Derek, than he has maybe in that number 8 role. We've obviously discussed a little bit Mohamed Diomande in the position he's playing at the moment. Is that getting the most out of him? He's doing a lot for the teams. You maybe notice, like that Hibs game when he isn't there, but is he getting enough of the ball? Is that role best suited to his to his capabilities? But Raskin, I think what shouldn't be forgotten about him is that he was, when he arrived at Rangers, he was seen as a very promising young player who'd played a lot of games, similar to Diomande, who I think had 150 appearances by the age of 21 or 22. There was actually in Belgium a lot of I think surprise that he chose to make his next step to the Scottish Premiership, having played in Belgium instead of maybe going elsewhere. At that time, it was believed that he wasn't far away from getting a call up to the national team. He'd obviously been a very important player for the under-21s, and those injuries, the change in style, the inconsistency, and his own poor performances at points haven't helped him. But the fact that he played 90 minutes, and the fact that he played it in that role, and the fact that I think Clement didn't take him out of the number 6 role at halftime, he put Connor Barron in the kind of number 8 position on the right-hand side. I think that showed that he was happier with Raskin, who at times when he's played in that deeper position, Derek, I think has lacked the kind of maybe patience and has tried to force things. The game that comes to mind, this is a bit of a niche reference, but you remember the game under Michael Beale, Rangers won 4-0 against Livingston. Seema scored late on. It was 1-0 until like the 70th minute or something. It was just after, it was at the very start of last season, just before he got sacked, and Raskin was at the base of midfield in that game, and there was a period in the game where you just needed someone to hold on to the ball and keep it ticking over, and he kept giving it away because he wants to play forward quickly and he wants to rush things on occasion. I didn't think that was the case on Sunday. I thought he looked after the ball a bit better. Yes, he gave it away in periods as the game wore on. It was his first 90 minutes in a while. But as well, what stood out to me is his off-ball work, which has always been the thing that's kind of stood out in his game, his ability to win the ball back and get around the pitch quite consistently. So I don't know what you think. I'd like to actually see him play in that position more often than the number 8 role, because I just don't think we've not seen him play games consistently, really, since that first 5 months he came to the club. Is that right? Yeah, I think, or maybe it's at the start of last season, but then he was injured come October.
Yeah, well, Thomas with the point here, he says Beale was getting a tune out of Raskin. I think he wasn't really injured under Michael Beale, was he? My mind, I don't know if it's playing tricks on me, but I don't know if the system. Homer with the point as well, which I think is an interesting one, just on the midfield, because Raskin, Barron and Diomande in midfield is probably why we are in the position we are, too small and lightweight. Do you think he's got a point there?
I don't think size necessarily equates to. If you look at someone like Raskin, I think he does have the ability to win the ball back. He's aggressive off the ball. Similarly with Diomande and Barron, I don't think they're players who you can talk about the shape of the Rangers midfield, which I think's actually changed a bit. It's less, two players with one number 10 in front, and more often than not, you've seen one number 6 with two number 8. Lawrence has been playing slightly deeper, hasn't he? In the system has slightly changed. So I don't think they're too small and lightweight. The point about Beale was getting a tune out of Raskin. I think the role was it's again an important reminder of the fact that Rangers have changed from systems. Yeah. And Raskin was probably better suited to Beale's system, I think, on the face of things, because playing in combination, he's more of a ball carrier than passer. Do you know? I don't think he's someone who you're going to see split lines a lot, and I actually think he's far better at carrying the ball than he is at passing the ball. But if you go back to pre-season in 2023, there was a feeling that this is someone who can really kick on this season inside the building and outside of it as well. This is someone who has a lot of the tools to go and be a really good player for Rangers and domestic competition in the middle of the park, and he's just not been able to achieve that consistency. I don't think it's an issue of him being lightweight. I think to that point there is an issue with injuries, and there is a fact that Rangers just cannot afford. We've talked about this with Ridvan or Cortez. Rangers can't afford to carry that many players who are going to break down consistently. That's been their undoing, or one of the reasons for their undoings in the last couple of seasons. So I don't think he's lightweight, but I do think he probably needs to demonstrate to himself and to Clement that he can, play in that role consistently.
Yeah, it's sparking a lot of debate in the comments just about the overall midfield situation at this moment in time. And Blue Nose John says not being able to sign a player of Joan Jordan's quality has hampered us. Well, we know Rangers were looking to add that number 6, that experienced number 6 in the summer, and they were unable to do so. Colin Clark as well, can't disagree with this. We're needing a Barry Ferguson type in midfield. And there's a point as well just on Raskin. Scott raises the point here. No Belgian partisanship for me. Raskin is a starter at 6. I was expecting to see. I thought when Clement came in, Joshua, just at the Belgian connection there, that would see Raskin really flourish, but it's not quite happened like that. Like you say, the summer of 2023, I was expecting both he and Todd Cantwell, when they both arrived at the club, thinking Rangers have on a watch with these guys, brought in for small fees. They'll go on and really carve good careers at Ibrox. Cantwell, as we know what's happened with him. And Raskin, jury very much still out. And what we're on just a little over, coming up for 2 years now, in a few months, 2 years at the club. And jury's still very much out on him.
I think, and again, I know I keep going back to this, but it is just, if you look at the roles they played and the system they played in for those first 5 months, it was quite consistent, wasn't it? They knew what they were doing. They came into a relatively settled system. Now, Rangers were still behind Celtic when Beale came in. They couldn't, win a cup final or a semi-final. But there was that was a consistent first season that largely under Beale. A lot changed that summer, and if you remember the start of the next season, a lot changed actually with Raskin and Cantwell too. So Beale came in, played a system that kind of changed in the summer. I think it was 9 players came in, 11 players came in this summer, the most recent summer. So not dissimilar in terms of actual how much change was happening to that starting 11. And Raskin went from, he was a number 6 against Kilmarnock on the opening day of the season, and John Lundstrom was kind of like a shuttling number 8, and he'd finished the previous season in that role. Cantwell wasn't in the team that day. You think back to the Old Firm game that Rangers lost, which really was the undoing of Beale. And although the 3-0 game towards the end of the previous season, I really don't think you can put much on that at all, because the league was done at that point. But Cantwell had played well in that number 10 position. Then in the next, that 1-0 defeat in September when Kyogo scored, he was kind of in a deep position on the right. So I don't think they were helped by inconsistency at the start of the next season. Obviously, Lammers coming in impacted where Cantwell was playing. Now, of course, players have individual responsibility, and we've spoken about the Cantwell situation to death. But it is just a reminder, if you look at those 2 players over those first few months compared to the next season, that when changes, like not only a manager changing but also a system change, when that happens, players' roles aren't consistent, and they maybe can't build up that consistency in their performances, because they're always adapting to, I don't know, a new role somewhere, a new manager, a new tactical setup. If you compare someone like Lundstrom to Raskin, very different players in that number 6 position. Lundstrom would play a lot of long passes. He was very consistent in terms of availability, and Raskin really wasn't trusted in that role whatsoever. I don't really think, apart from the weekend, we've seen him in that number 6 position at all. So, yes, the jury is very much still out, Derek, but it's also a lesson in the fact that I think as Rangers are learning now, if you want to fix things like the player trading model, you need a consistent environment. If you're going from manager to manager, you need to have more alignment in what each manager is doing, because otherwise all these things will kind of happen as a result, where players like Raskin, who came in and there was a lot of anticipation about him. He's had injuries, yes. He also holds responsibility for his own performances, but I don't think you can say that he's had the optimum environment. What Rangers would have sold him when he came to the club, I don't think he's had the optimum environment as well to go and kick on at this early stage in his career.
Yep, John with the point says, if he never mentioned Chelsea, he would have been taken better. If he wants that move to Chelsea, then he's got to start impressing in a Rangers jersey, that's for sure. But I
don't mind that type of thing though, because that's what should happen. Like, players should come in. Take someone like Diomande. Rangers should buy them at 21, 22. And now, obviously, Raskin, I think that was a Belgian outlet he gave the interview to. Is it ill-advised, that type of comment? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah. But players should try and come to Rangers for a couple of years, and Rangers should sell them on. That is the entire point. But obviously, the PR doesn't look great when you're then out for the for the following
No.
year, does it?
No, it
But
does
listen,
not.
he is someone who's as you say, the jury is still out, because we could come back from the next international break, Derek, and he doesn't start in that number 6 position at all. He plays higher up the pitch, which again, I don't think suits him that much. I think he's a player who wants more of the ball instead of running beyond it in that number 8 position. It's going to be interesting to see what happens, because I'd argue as well that Clermont needs him in there to not burn Connor Barron, as he spoke about before the home game against St Johnstone, and it will be interesting to see what happens with Dujon Sterling's position as well, and the knock-on impact of right back and centre back in particular.
Yeah, there's a comment that came in as well from Maka. He says that we can improve the midfield in January by signing Lennon. Was put Milker there. It's Miller. Of course, I know what you mean, Maka. He's got experience of this league. Recently named September Premiership Player of the Month. Of course, that Motherwell has certainly started the season very well. 18, just turned 18 now. We've discussed him before, Joshua, and sort of comparison. I know Andy Halliday, I think, recently as well mentioned that the comparison of Bailey Rice and Lennon Miller, how one has really excelled in the last couple of seasons, and in the case of Bailey Rice has stalled somewhat. But Lennon Miller, I think, during the summer months when the transfer window was open, we all had hoped that Rangers would make a move for him. I would imagine he would cost a fair whack in January if Rangers were to make a move, and I would not be surprised to see a host of big clubs sniffing about this lad.
Yeah, I mean, the Bailey Rice comparison, you're right to raise that, Derek, because the both probably similarly, if not Bailey Rice rated slightly higher a couple of years ago. Lennon Miller's played a lot of football. This ties into the debate of B teams and youth development in Scotland. Chris has got a great piece coming at the weekend on that, and I think that comment does kind of sum it up in all honesty, and probably saves us waffling on about it for 5 minutes. One of the areas that Rangers haven't done well enough in recruitment wise over the last few years is, easy wins in the Scottish market. There's some players that are going to be difficult to get. For example, someone like Bojan Miovski, obviously a very good player, would have been good enough definitely to play for Rangers, but would have cost a lot of money, and would probably have cost more if he was going to come to Rangers, because there's obviously some politics at playing Scottish football. Someone like Connor Barron is a signing that makes sense. Now, I think that Barron, the previous comment about someone like Joanne Jordan, Rangers wanted to get ideally a number 6, an out-and-out, more experienced number 6 in this window as well. There's a lot of moving parts in the summer window. Connor Barron started the season well in that number 6 position. In an ideal situation, he isn't thrown in to start 50 games in that position, because he's not done that before. But obviously, it's also a signing that makes sense. He's got quality. He knows the league. He's coming in for a tribunal fee. That is a type of deal that Rangers have not done enough of in recent years. It goes without saying that I think if Rangers could get Lennon Miller, and it seemed like the right situation in the midfield at that moment in time, then that could be a deal that happens. But I think you're spot on to raise the Bailey Rice comparison, because that ties into a lot of other players that Chris discusses in this piece at the weekend. Alex Lowry, Leon King, players that have been really, really highly rated, but through a variety of different factors, whether that be the B team, whether it be, again, the inconsistency and what's happening with a managerial change every October, somewhat disrupting that pathway, the head of academy changing consistently. All these different factors don't create that environment that arguably players need to get in and make it at a club like Rangers, where the pressure is so intense right from the off. Lennon Miller's been able to do that, and he's been able to play a lot of football, and he's good enough. We have this idea in Scotland that a young player is a young player until they're
no, I hate that.
Which just isn't the case.
That's my hate.
Yeah, and it's pretty isolated, I think, to Britain if you compare it to a lot of European football as well. And Motherwell and Lennon Miller have obviously have shown that.
Yeah, fair play to Motherwell and Lennon Miller. If his career is going the way it is, then I can see him playing in one of the top leagues, maybe moving down south. I really hope that the ship hasn't sailed, but it is certainly heading out to shore, I fear. But Headkeeper with a point says Bailey Rice should go on loan if not getting match time. Absolutely agree, buddy. A few other comments saying the same as well. I think you just touched on the B team there, Joshua. I don't see any benefit for guys like this playing in ad hoc friendlies every now and again in the B team. I don't understand how that aids their development. For me, they have to be sent out on loan, surely.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously, it's a situation that is not just of Rangers making. This goes back to the topic of Colt teams and trying to get B teams playing in different divisions as opposed to the Lowland League. So I think in an ideal situation, absolutely Rangers wouldn't be running that best v best games campaign where it is sporadic fixtures with the odd kind of cup game put in there as well. I agree with you from my limited knowledge of youth football. I think you'd say that he's at an age. And maybe it was this time last year, I think September, Derek, where he signed that long-term contract. He'd just come on against Real Betis in the Europa League. He'd been given his debut by Michael Beale at 16. Now, maybe there's some, again, if you compare Beale's football to Clement's football, Beale's football, a lot of technical midfielders in the middle of the pitch. Crowd in the middle of the pitch probably protects players if their best asset isn't their physicality. And you compare that to Clement's football, where it's a very different setup in the middle of the pitch. Again, has that helped Bailey Rice make the step up to first team football? Would he, if Beale was still in the club, have played more football? I would think so. Yes, he's still very young and still has a lot of time to make that jump. Everyone knows that he's a very, very highly rated player. Everyone's seen that when he's come on at different points throughout his Rangers career. But if you look over the course of the last year, it's not a new debate. The need for a better youth pathway set up in football. The need, I think, for some sort of a team set up that allows the top clubs in the country to have their B team playing at a higher level. But that's obviously a decision that needs to be spread around Scottish football and hasn't been able to, that compromise hasn't been arrived at so far, has it?
Yep. Big thanks to Scott Girvin, who's donated a Rangers Review membership. That's very kind of you, Scott. Thank you very much for that. A couple of more points that we'll address. We'll stay on the field before I get your view on the more movement behind the scenes, Joshua. Dana Life says, I can't see Ridvan getting back into the team with Jeff Day left back. It's his shirt now. Yes, of course, the manager did say prior to the international break that he does expect both Danilo and Ridvan back training with the first team by the end of the international break. Now, we've seen Danilo posting on his Instagram, scoring in training with the message back in business. So that is a positive sign. And Ridvan, I was just talking about Raskin there, Joshua. Ridvan is another that we've seen in fits and starts ever since he arrived just over 2 years ago now. Jefty's not getting dropped at this moment in time. Where does Ridvan slot in?
He's not getting dropped at this moment in time. You're right. That's it's a good problem to have, I guess, in one area of the pitch for Clement. I think we've seen with Ridvan up until now, and the stretches back a few seasons, that you can't yet trust him to go and play as consistently as Jeff Day has. You just, I don't think you've got the evidence to prove that. So I guess one positive would be, well, you can keep that position pretty fresh and you can rotate them. Rangers are going to play minimum of 52, 3, 4 games this season, if not more. You need two players in most positions, I'd argue, to keep things fresh. I'm not in favour that much of Chefty pushing higher up the pitch, just because I think he's done so well at left back, and I don't think the positives outweigh the negatives for his development there, but Rangers might need him at points. What you would say is, if you look at how they're trying to adapt to that, not having a left winger at the moment, Chefty is in possession, playing really high up the pitch, allowing Barami or Hadji or whoever's in that kind of left wing position to drift in field. That leaves Cherney to play high and wide on the right, which obviously, as we discussed slightly earlier in the week, Derek, I don't always think that suits him. I actually think against St Johnstone, the fact that he could move in field a little bit more and he wasn't as isolated helped him, because when he's out on the right-hand side, I don't think he's got the pace and power to go around players. And if Tavernier isn't overlapping, he can become a little bit predictable. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens there, because if both of those players are fit at the moment, and I really like Ridvan, then I think Chefty gets the shirt. Ridvan also gives you a different option, because he's probably someone who can build up a little bit more, move inside the pitch. But that maybe is dependent on then having a left winger, which with the Cortez and Matondo situation at the moment, Rangers obviously don't have depth in the left wing, do they? And I think Barami works well with Chefty because it allows him to always play inside the pitch in the final third instead of being isolated high and wide, which is not really where he wants to be either.
Yeah, a few comments on Ridvan. Denzel with the point says, I think Ridvan must be up there with one of our strangest signings ever. Physically not suited to his role in our league, injury prone in the extreme, and cost a fortune. So that is Denzel's point of view on that. I've got to say, I do like Ridvan, but the issue is he's just injured more often than not. Same situation with Kamar Roof for me. Like him as a player, but it's simply just injury prone, which is a sad reality. And again, I think with January approaching, it wouldn't be a surprise to see him linked with moves away. I think every window he's linked with, especially a move back to Turkey. We know he wanted to stay at Rangers and fight for his place, but yeah, he's certainly got competition when he does return, that's for sure. Scott Kearney with the point as well. Problems are upstairs. We discussed at length yesterday when Chris was on, Joshua, about more boardroom upheaval with the departure of Craig Robertson. He's going to leave at the end of the year to pursue other opportunities. The head of football operations, it leaves Rangers looking for a new chairman, new CEO, new head of football operations, and new academy director. What do you make of it all?
Yeah, well, it's not ideal for Rangers, is it? I think.
No.
I mean, this time last year, what month are we in October? So not even this time last year. Last December, Rangers completed their football board. John Bennett, when he came into the club alongside James Bisgrove, obviously there was a lot of change, a lot of upheaval, a lot of internal promotion, a lot of kind of, if you look at it, a lot of the younger minds who had been there when John Bennett had been vice chairman were promoted into senior roles. So you take James Bisgrove, who was the head of the commercial side and had done a very good job there, was perceived to have done a very good job there in raising finances in that side of the business. He's promoted to CEO. Seb Jacobs, who came in, I can't remember his initial role, but he came into the academy and then is promoted to head of academy. Beale obviously was second in command effectively to Gerrard, and he's promoted to the top table as manager. Craig Robertson had come into Rangers initially to work in the academy, head of football operations. So there's a real pattern throughout that, wasn't it? The difficulty is none of those people are there, or almost none of those people are there anymore. So if you take that football board, the idea being that instead of the sporting director model, you have a CEO, and then you have lots of different departmental heads to allow specialisation in an area like recruitment. I think recruitment, if you look at the fact that Rangers have reduced their wage bill significantly, I think it was a good start this window. There was limitations, and Clement said this publicly about the need to sell before buying. They didn't get everyone that they wanted. They didn't get quite the number of players that they wanted in. But if you speak to people close to that situation, I think that the recruitment department is in better shape than it was for the future, as well as having made some good signings now. Still a lot of work to be done, absolutely. But the idea is that you then have, instead of the overarching sporting director, you have departmental heads, a 7-man football board who come together to make decisions. As I say, the issue is you've only got 3 of those 7 left. So you have a lot of positions to fill. I still think that the argument for having a sporting director is that if Philippe Clement was to lose the next 5-6 games, now we know that I don't think that's going to happen, and we know that the backing for him is really, really strong, especially compared to other managers. There's a belief internally that Rangers need to keep doing the same thing, that they have got the right man for the moment in the manager's hot seat, and that isn't going to change. But I still think there is issues with that football board set up, and that who selects a new manager, who has the overall footballing insight, is there enough football knowledge on that football board, etc., etc. So there's a lot of questions. Because so many people have left, and you can't say it's in the strongest of positions, and it's not been a good year for it, because this time last year I doubt Rangers would have thought that of those 7 people who'd been appointed to the football board, only 3 would remain, being Clement, Niels Coppin, and who's the other one I can't remember off the top, Dr. Mark Waller as well. James Bisgrove obviously left. John Bennett now been replaced by John Gilligan as interim chairman. Head of academy still to be confirmed, at least publicly. And
it's down the list of priorities, academy director, isn't it?
Yeah, and Craig Robertson, obviously, as Chris broke the other day, is to leave the club as well. So when Scott says the problems are upstairs, he needs consistency. All the things we've discussed today, Derek, whether it be youth pathway into the first team, things like academy directors changing and the vision changing at different points, and then that not necessarily being aligned with, let's say, the style of playing the first team, that is going to have a tangible impact down the line for players breaking into into the first team as well. So there's no doubt that they need to find consistency at that level, and they need to make a lot of appointments. The CEO timescale is still expected for around the end of the year. Obviously, a notice period could come into that as well, but very much like on the pitch, there's been a lot of upheaval, a lot of change, even if you're just looking back to last December when that football board was completed.
Yeah, we know the process is underway. They are looking to appoint a CEO and a chairman to replace John Gilligan. So, the sooner the better, I think, with regards to that. Rangers need proper foundations in place behind the scenes. And I think every supporter would like to see that resolved as soon as they possibly can. Right, that'll do us there. Big thank you to you all for tuning into the show as ever. Chrissy's written a piece, incidentally, on the boardroom situation, folks, on the website. So do go and check it out. If we don't speak to you a little later on, then enjoy your Thursday. Just a shout out as well for many of you. I know that many of you watch the show that aren't subscribers to the Rangers Review. So if you hit that subscribe button, then you'll never miss a show when we go live. And there's a lot more videos on the channel other than the morning briefing as well. We've got loads to keep you covered with regards all things Rangers, despite being in the international break. I don't think there's a few Rangers players, of course, away on international duty. I think Yanis Hadji will be away, won't he? Who else will be away?
Marami, I think Casim Weir's goes away with the Dutch under-21s, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a number of different players. So we'll have a bit of a roundup next week. But we've got on the YouTube channel, we've got. It's actually I think next Tuesday marks the anniversary of Clement's appointment. So myself and Adam are going to do one of our tactics shows this week on what we've learned after a year, where Rangers are a year in. We'll then do a specific player-focused tactics podcast next week. Chris and Stevie have a talking point show coming, which I know people really seem to enjoy as well. So loads and loads of content for people there. If you want to get these videos early and extra videos as well and podcasts, you can join the YouTube, what was it called, Derek? Become a member of the channel, is that right?
Yeah, Rangers Review Extra.
Rangers Review Extra.
The members channel, yeah. So, thank you for your support, folks. And, of course, Robbie Fraser yesterday called up to the Scotland under-21 squad. So, good luck to him. Hopefully comes back injury-free. Right, we'll wrap up there. Thank you for tuning in, as ever. Bye for now.